This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated with another true crime of insurance fraud video. This one, chapter or number 66, Lucy and the Tsar. Lucy served as a second officer on a 747 operated by Trans-Oceanic Airlines. Twice a week she flew from Dallas to Leningrad with brief layovers in New York and Brussels. She had been a second officer for 5 years. Lucy was looking forward to promotion to first officer. She would be the second woman to command a 747 for Trans-Oceanic. Her performance reviews were always exceptional. Never had Trans-Oceanic Airlines treated her differently than any other pilot. The glass ceiling seemed non-existent. Lucy, as a highly paid professional airline pilot, owned a beautiful 5,000-square-foot home in Dallas where she lived with her son, daughter, and a full-time housekeeper nanny. She was happy. Her future was unlimited. At 40 years of age, she was approaching the apex of her professional career. Her layover in Leningrad was usually 2 days. Lucy would recover from the inevitable jet lag by visiting the great museums of the time of the Tsars. Her favorite was the Hermitage, which was one of the Tsar's summer palaces. To the museum she always brought along her Nikon single-lens reflex camera that recorded each picture with very high resolution. She used the Nikon to photograph the magnificent treasures stolen by the Bolsheviks from the Tsar. The fast lens and digital enhancement allowed her to obtain images without using a flash. Lucy would spend evenings at her hotel sorting her photographs into categories on her laptop. She had collections of close-up shots of Fabergé royal Easter eggs, of oil paintings by Gauguin, Degas, Van Gogh, and Picasso, and photos of fine works of art made by native Russian craftsmen unknown in the West. She also purchased on her layovers modern works from Russian craftsmen, trying to earn U.S. dollars that included silver serving pieces decorated over a period of years in the finest enamels, bronze sculptures, jewelry, and copies of the work of every Fabergé workshop in the entire Russian Empire. Lucy became fluent in the Russian language. She purchased every book she could on the art of the 40 years before the Russian Revolution of 1917. She was expert at the art of Russia as she was in landing characteristics of a 747. With the Second Russian Revolution and the fall of the Soviet Union, some pieces of art she admired over the years became available for purchase in hard currency. Lucy yearned to own the beautiful objects being made available. The thought of having in her Dallas living room an actual perfect copy of a Fabergé egg, a copy of a Gauguin, and a bronze copy of a Renoir sculpture caused her to salivate, even though she knew they were copies and actual originals cost as much as a new 747. Although she lived well on her second officer's salary, she could not generate the cash necessary to purchase the items that were available. Lucy needed a means to gain a great deal of money rapidly. A method came to her at dinner in Dallas with her sister and her sister's husband. Alex Shmushkovich was an insurance adjuster for Edward Lloyd's Insurance of Texas. The management of his company terribly upset him. Its claims practices, Alex believed, were draconian. "It's not fair," Alex raged. "Honest people with legitimate damage get no money, while blatant frauds collect just because they threaten to sue." "How is that possible?" Lucy asked. "I just wrote a check for $500,000 to a man here in Dallas who reported a burglary at his house. He claimed thieves had taken expensive items of jewelry and art from his home, that I know he never owned. Well, if he never owned them, how could he insure them? That's a good question, Lucy. The answer is insurance companies are often stupid. They wrote a homeowner's policy without asking him if there was any valuable art in the house. The agent never visited the house. No company person ever looked at it. All they did was look at an appraisal prepared by an antique dealer in Fort Worth, who signed an appraisal based on descriptions of the stolen property. The antique dealer never had items of that quality for sale. He could not know a Fabergé from a manhole cover. Well, how do you know he didn't own them? He wouldn't make a claim for something that did not exist. Oh, Lucy, you are naive, Alex moaned. For $500,000, people will say anything. For 520 different art appraisers on art dealers in this area would write an appraisal saying anything. All you need is a gullible insurance agent who sees a big commission and you're insured. The person insured then reports a burglary to the police. They have no suspects and no evidence, and the insurance company pays. Doesn't the person have to prove he owned the things? Oh, no, insurance is a business of the utmost good faith. We have to believe these crooks and treat them fairly, even if we know they're cheating us. Unless I could get direct evidence, like find one of the items at a museum, we have to pay. If we don't pay, we face possible bad faith suits where we would pay not only the $500,000, but another $10 million as a bonus to punish us for doing such a terrible thing as not paying a fraud. You must be so frustrated, Lucy commiserated. Oh, I am, Lucy. Nevertheless, occasionally we catch one and save the company some money. Even more occasionally, the police arrest the person for trying to cheat his insurance company. Lucy's sister, who had heard this story hundreds of times before, changed the subject of the conversation to the remodeling of her kitchen. Alex brooded silently while downing a six-pack of Bud. Lucy seemed to be listening attentively to her sister. She nodded and smiled in all the right places. However, she was devising how she could quickly get $250,000 to purchase a real Fabergé bird sculpture in gold, jade, carnelian, and amber she knew was available. In the American market, it would be worth $500,000 to $600,000 at an auction. The next day, Lucy selected 10 of her best photographs of 10 great works of art by artists unknown in the United States. One was an Ayvazovsky seascape and several 16th century icons. All were permanently stored in the Hermitage. The Russians had never published photographs of these items. The limit on her homeowner's policy was only $200,000. Using the yellow pages, she found an agent of Edward Lloyd's insurance company. She replaced her homeowner's policy with a new policy with limits for unscheduled personal property of $500,000. The agent took an application from her, and as promised, he made no inquiry about the value of her property other than to ask what limits of insurance she wanted. Edward Lloyd's insurance company concluded that Lucy was an exceptional risk. She had never been canceled, non-renewed, or refused insurance in the past by any insurer. She had no prior losses other than a small grease fire in her kitchen 4 years before. She had a central station reporting silent burglar alarm system that protected the house, covering all openings to the house and with motion detectors covering all open spaces. The house was also equipped with a rate of rise fire detector system and smoke detectors tied into the central station alarm system. Her house was in a gated community. A guard at the gate and a mobile patrol throughout the neighborhood paid for by all the residents of her exclusive Dallas neighborhood, kept unsavory individuals from the neighborhood. She then found the antique dealer in Fort Worth that her brother-in-law had mentioned. She took her photographs to the antique dealer and told him she owned the items in the 10 photographs, but since they were so valuable and so bulky, she needed him to appraise them for photographs. For a fee of $750, he agreed to prepare a formal appraisal on his appraisal letterhead as a certified appraiser of fine arts of the 10 items shown in the photographs. With Lucy's assistance and notes from her studies, he could identify each artist, some totally obscure Russians and one Armenian, and set a value on the items equal to the $250,000 she needed to purchase the Fabergé bird. The day after the policy was issued, Lucy flew to Leningrad. On her return, she found the policy in her mail. Lucy made 2 more trips to Leningrad. She sent the children and nanny to her sister's home for a weekend because she needed to attend a pilots' union meeting in Kansas City. Once the children were gone, Lucy took a brick from her garden and broke a pane of glass in the French doors leading out of her master bedroom into the garden. She then went to the alarm box and with a pair of wire cutters cut all of the wires coming into her alarm system. She did not set the alarm. Lucy boarded a plane at DFW International Airport and flew to Kansas City. She attended her meetings, returned 2 days later, and called the police to report she was the victim of a crime. Lucy told the police that when she entered the house, secure but for the broken pane of glass, the alarm panel did not buzz. It always did before. Tearfully, she explained to the officers that she found the broken glass, nothing else in disarray, and her Russian art gone. She discovered after calling the police that they had cut the wires to the alarm. She immediately went to the closet where she stored her fine arts, and the closet was empty of the fine art. She told the police that only 3 people in the United States knew she owned these great works of art: her insurance agent, the underwriter, and the appraiser who did the appraisal just 2 months before. She suggested to the police that her main suspects were her insurance company and insurance agent. The police, impressed by Lucy's home and the fine things she had in it, believed her story. Detectives from the Dallas Police Department interviewed the insurance agent and the appraiser. An Austin detective even interviewed the underwriter. All had perfect alibis, and the investigation stopped. Lucy made claim to Edward Lloyd's insurance company, who attempted to investigate her claim thoroughly. She told him she bought each item on the black market in the Soviet Union before it fell. She paid as expected in Russia, cash. The price she paid was 1/10 the true value of each item. She used her savings and the money from her dead husband's life insurance to make these purchases. She was also shocked, she said, when she received the appraisal showing their value to be $250,000. The adjuster, reviewing the detailed and official-looking appraisal, faxed a copy to his underwriter in Austin, who claimed experience in fine arts. The underwriter explained to the adjuster that the appraisal was conservative for items of such quality and that he should hold Lucy's claim down to the amount she requested. There was no limit on the homeowner's policy for fine arts and no requirement that such items be specifically identified on the policy. The adjuster had no doubt that she could afford the art because of her profession as an airline pilot. The fact that Lucy was recently widowed, and as Lucy was pleased to tell the agent her deceased husband had left her a wealthy woman, she explained to the adjuster, as she did to the police, how she purchased each item and why she had no receipts. Customs does not require that art be declared if it's just for personal use. The adjuster presented Lucy with a proof of loss. She signed it under oath and all other papers the adjuster requested she sign. Edward Lloyd's insurance company delivered a check for $250,000 promptly. Nobody at the Austin, Texas-based insurance company had ever seen a claim for quality Russian art before. Edward Lloyd's insurance company was adequately reinsured. It presented its reinsurance claim and closed its file. Lucy converted the settlement check to U.S. currency traveler's checks. She placed the traveler's checks in her overnight bag on the airplane, and when she landed, as part of a well-known airline crew, her luggage was not inspected by the local customs officials. The traveler's checks, better than cash, entered the new Russia without hindrance. Lucy immediately went to the dealer appointed by the Hermitage and purchased the Fabergé bird she lusted for, paying only $200,000 in traveler's checks. With the remaining $50,000, she purchased 2 Fabergé silver cigarette cases and a small Picasso drawing in pencil signed and dated by the artist. The bird is displayed prominently over Lucy's mantelpiece, and she used the Fabergé cigarette case to hold note papers and a fountain pen. Lucy was lucky. If anyone at Edward Lloyd's insurance company had gone to the Dallas Public Library, they could have found similar photographs of the same items in any one of several books on the Hermitage collection housed at the library. They did not. They could have called an investigator in Russia to check out at the Hermitage whether such items had been sold. They did not. Lucy was promoted to captain. She now commands a transatlantic 747 that flies 3 times a week nonstop from Dallas to London's Heathrow Airport. She is starting a collection of photographs from the Queen's Museum at Buckingham Palace. I expect sometime in the future, some of the Queen's collection will end up in an insurance claim. This video was adapted from my book, Insurance Fraud Costs Everyone, which supplements my treatise in 2 volumes called Insurance Fraud Second Edition, which are available from Amazon.com as both a Kindle book, a paperback, and a hardcover. Thank you for your attention.